Alright guys, so we're here. I got a little bit of time while I'm waiting for some parts to turn up for the Z. I'm waiting on a knock harness. So while I had the intake off, I thought I would make a couple videos on polishing the intake plenum and porting the intakes. So here we are polishing. If you're here, it's because you clicked on the video because you want to make your engine bay look less trash, which is a good idea because VQs look a little bit dirty in my opinion. So hopefully I'll follow this up with like a cable tidy that goes over the timing cover. I think they look pretty sweet. So hopefully I can make one of those or install one. And we're gonna polish the plenum. So hopefully at the end it'll look like this. So hopefully at the end of the video, if you follow along, yours can look as dope as this. Pretty fresh, bling, style points, all that. Real performance mod because the reflectiveness of it actually deflects heat. So that's like easy, like 15 horsepower gains, I reckon. So yeah, if you're here, stick around. I'll give some tips at the end of the video, just so if you want to do this, I'll tell you like all the tools I use, what I'd recommend, what I wouldn't recommend, polish, different wheels, die grinders, all that sort of set. So yeah, here we go. Alright guys, so before we start polishing everything, I'm just going to take off the throttle body so that we can avoid damaging that in the polishing. So after that, we're good to go. Came off pretty easy, just 4 little Allen keys, and then just going to pull that gasket off so that we can keep that for later, because I'm a dirty person who reuses gaskets. That's me. I just pulled it off and it's actually all dirtied up with crud. So maybe we give that a clean while we're here too. This is the front side. This is why I didn't know it was dirty, because I can't actually see the back side until you take it off, but wow. Yeah, we'll give that a clean. So I just thought I'd get this on camera. You got these little serial number here that I'm not quite sure what it's for. I don't think it's engine number. Being on your plenum, it just doesn't make sense. But I'm just going to grind them off because I don't need them anymore, and I think it'd look much better without them on there. So just got this little Dremel here. So over here we got the plenum. Jade's been working pretty hard on sanding it back and polishing it up, and she's done an awesome job. I think all around it's taken quite a bit of time to remove all the pitting from the casting. So I think all this area is like 360, and then down here we tried the high grit sandpapers just to see how it would turn out, and it's pretty awesome. So that's 2000 grit there. I also gave the throttle body a bit of a cleanup. So you can see now it looks a bit better. I'll do a bit more on it tomorrow. That's just sort of a start with a bit of brake clean. I probably should be using carby cleaner, but I don't know where it is, so brake clean it is. Alright guys, so I did a little bit of Dremel work off camera. So that's basically what you can see here, specifically around the edges and in the sort of tight to reach places and just under that throttle body there. So I just went around and roughed up the surface with the Dremel and did what I can, and we're about to do some more. Alright, so I'm left with a couple little spots where I can't get the Dremel into with this head, so I'm going to change to a real small head and just scratch it up so it cleans up the sort of gunky top layer. I won't be able to polish it because it's in too deep, but I'll take the top layer off so it gives it some shine.
What's wrong? What's wrong? Where you going? Where you going? Hey? Hey? Sleeping on the job. Sleeping on the job. Just gave it a little test polish to see what it's looking like at the moment. You can see there's the camera, so it's pretty damn good. That's only 360 grit at the moment. So I'm pretty happy with that, but I got all the other stuff to go higher. So we're gonna keep going. I'm gonna stand it back up. It did highlight some imperfections, which is good. It means I can see what I'm working with. So I went back after polishing with this little emery pad on the drill. It was really good at getting into the corners, and it was also a good roughness, that it wasn't too rough that it left deep gouges, but it was, you know, rough enough to get at the imperfections without, you know, taking forever. So look into getting one of those if you're interested in doing this. Alright guys, so this is where we're up to. I've got it all the way back with 800. Turn the light on. And I've got some polish on it ready to go, so I'm gonna hit it with the polisher. And then we'll see how it turns out. Alright guys, so you can see me in it, so it's getting pretty bloody good. Alright guys, so I went back with the sandpaper just to chase any marks left behind after buffing. Anything that the buffer couldn't get out. So I was just using a little bit of 800 just so I didn't have to re-sand it afterwards. And I was just chasing any marks, particularly in corners where the orb missed. That's where the most attention was required. And just here I'm using the buffer to bring it back up to a shine so I can see what's left behind and what needs more attention. I didn't use the buffer on the final polish. It left too many swirls, I think. But you'll see what I'm talking about when I show the results after this buffing. So just here you can see that section there has been hit with the foam pad and on the left hasn't. So the buffer just left these sort of swirls behind, but it did bring it up to a shine. So it just depends on how far you want to go. I'll show you what the foam pad looks like. It was just a little drill attachment with a soft foam pad that I think worked quite well because the foam was able to sort of move around corners and edges, and it was quite easy to use. You can see it takes out those swirl marks left by the buffing wheel. And then after this foam pad, I went to a cotton buffing wheel on the drill, and that was what I used to do the final polish. It left a much cleaner surface behind. It did have those horizontal lines, but it just brought it up such a great shine that I was willing to sort of sacrifice a couple horizontal swirls for a brighter shine. For the final buffing, I zip tied the trigger on the drill down so it was maintained a consistent speed, and that sort of helps to give a consistent polish all the way across because you've got the same rotational speed. So that's something to keep in mind. So this is where we got to. You can see the camera in it. There's me. Hello. So this is basically where we got to. It's a little bit tricky to hold up without touching it, but you can see some horizontal lines in it. That's just the polishing wheel. I couldn't get those out. I don't really, I'm not an aluminium polisher, I'm not an expert, but this is where I got to, and that's basically the biggest sort of defect in the polishing. I got all the way around the back of the throttle body, or the neck, and I just didn't get underneath because that's not important. No one's gonna see that. And all around the sides. So pretty stoked with how it turned out. I'll give you guys a quick walk through everything that I used. So first up, best tool I think for this is a die grinder. Get a nice die grinder, battery or air.
Good thing about air is that they don't run out of battery. You can use them all day long, except for the noise. If you want to go at night time, you might want something a bit quieter. So I went with a battery one of a night time. I used the air one when I needed to. I also think the air ones spin a bit faster, so you got that to think about if you want to get in nice and close and slow. You can turn the battery one down. These little Dremel tips, they don't have to be from the Dremel brand, but a very small sanding drum. They come in different sizes. I use from this size probably up to that size. I don't know what that is, probably an inch wide, and that was good. I used sandpaper discs. Get yourself, probably start around 40 grit, just with the first sort of wipe over. You want to get a lot of the pitting out because it'll save you so much time if you can go over the first time, get all that pitting out in the first go, rather than doing what I did. I went back and forth, because every time you go up to a high grit, you find more pitting, and then you got to go back, and you go back up. So start with 40 or 80, then 120, 240, around there. Then you move up to your 400s when you're going through your final ones, and then just step it up and up from there. Doesn't really, I think I did too big of a jump from 400 to 800 to 1000 to 2000. I think it'd be good to add a couple different grit papers between there, but that's the general idea. It just sort of all comes down to how good of a final polish you want. Polishing in the end, I used these little buffing wheels. I think they're cotton. They were pretty good. I used a little drum one, that wasn't too bad. And some of these foam pads, you don't need both of them. I think just pick one or the other and they'll give you similar results. I ended up going with the buffing wheel, but you saw that it left those horizontal lines in it. The foam pad didn't give as good of a shine. It wasn't as bright, it was a bit dull, but it didn't have those lines in it, so it depends on what you want. I think I wanted more shine. And it's gonna go on the car, it's gonna get dirty, it's gonna get dull. I'm not gonna pull it out every time to clean it up, so that's something else to remember. The other thing I used was little flapper discs. These I'm gonna be using to port the intakes, which will be the next video, so keep an eye out for that. So these are gonna come in handy for that. They're just little flapper discs. I think they're 60 grit. They will come in handy. And I think these are little emery pads. These were good around the 400 grit. They worked well for getting in around tight corners, but they do leave swirls, so they'll need to be sanded down too. Good little Dremel kit with a bunch of variety in tips is a good idea. I used a bunch of these just depending on where I was working on the Plenum. So if you could find a variety of tips, it really help you out. Other than that, I think that's just about everything I used. I did use that buffing wheel, but it did the same thing. It left big swirl marks in it, so I'm not sure if I was using the wrong head on it. I'm not an aluminium polisher, I don't know. I don't know this stuff, but you know, if you want to get to this stage, which is pretty damn good, I can see myself in it, so it's pretty good. You know, give it a go. I think it's well worth it considering how rough they look on their own. Sweet. Thanks for watching.